Hi, welcome everyone to this International Women's Day virtual event. I'm Saurabh Banerjee, Country Director, Room to Read India. Schools in India and many countries across the APEC region are opening after 2 long years. It's no surprise to anyone here that the global pandemic will have lasting effects, especially on disadvantaged girls. From the first days of the pandemic, lockdowns have brought a stark, unacceptable rise in gender based violence. The shift to remote work and online learning has increased gender gaps in employment and education. And entrenched socio-cultural norms have imposed vastly disappropriate care burdens on women. The pandemic has been a big setback to years of work done in countries around girls' education and women empowerment. Today, we are at the risk of losing a generation of women's voices as the world constricts to ever smaller spheres. A recent Bloomberg article reported it will take until 2030 for the number of women and girls living in extreme poverty to return to pre pandemic levels. And that's why Room to Read's work is ever so relevant now. We envision a world in which all children can pursue a quality education that enables them to reach their full potential and contribute to their communities and the world. Room to Read is transforming the lives of millions of children in low income communities by focusing on literacy and gender equality in education. We provide girls with life skills that are crucial to complete their education, develop their agency, and negotiate key decisions in their lives. We do so in collaboration with local communities, partner organizations, and governments. Together, we're transforming the world through education, creating a more just, gender equal society. Part of that work is amplifying women's voices through events like this gathering today. We have brought together leaders and equity champions to share strategies for elevating women's voices in the workplace and in the media. UN Women envisages that beyond the pandemic, we are also going to see two broad trends among women in the workforce: more women in senior positions in both private and public sectors, and more women with the skills to participate in the digital economy. Our panelists today can especially speak to the challenges women face as they strive to break down gender barriers in their areas of work. Today, we'll look forward to hearing the meaning of allyship and explore common barriers to gender parity, including obstacles caused by COVID 19. In addition, we'll hear fresh news stories of girls who have defied the odds to obtain an education and reach for their dreams. It's my hope that you will leave here inspired with strategies that can help you support women and girls by ensuring that their voices are heard. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our talented and inspiring moderator today, Purnima Garg, Deputy Country Director at the Room to Read India. Purnima manages an ever-growing portfolio at Room to Read India, represents the organization with the external stakeholders, and is a champion of girls' child rights and gender equality. In short, a perfect facilitator for today's discussion. On to you, Purnima.
Thank you, Saurabh, for the introduction. And it is always heartwarming to hear you. And, what a better start for a day to hear about gender equality and the pressing cause from a man. So it's always inspiring to hear you. So let's begin today's event by welcoming our eminent guests. We have today with us Ms. Vandana Dawar Ramchandani, APEC Head of Corporate Philanthropy at Bloomberg. Welcome, Vandana. Vandana is joining us today from Singapore. Vandana oversees corporate philanthropy across the region, focusing on addressing unmet needs in communities and leveraging Bloomberg's unique insight in data, news, and innovation to ultimately improve lives. Her team spearheads Bloomberg's industry-leading employee volunteer programs and railing regional financial leaders and the community through philanthropic initiatives. Vandana brings in more than 20 years of experience in financial service industry, having held leadership roles across various departments in Bloomberg, including data management, human resources, sales, and customer support. Uh, Vandana is on Bloomberg's Diversity and Inclusion Council for Asia Pacific. It is so wonderful to have you here, Vandana, today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Purnima. It's a privilege on behalf of Bloomberg and myself to be here. Thank you for including me.
Sure. I would like to introduce to another eminent speaker today we have with us. She's Ashi Well, Head of Partnership at Rebel Girls. Hi, Ashi, and thank you for joining us today. Ashi is joining us from Seattle today. Thank you for making this time.
My pleasure, Purnima. Happy Women's History Month. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, so just to tell our audience a little bit more about Ashi and about Rebel Girls. Rebel Girls, founded in 2016, is the girls-driven edu-entertainment company with a mission to empower a generation of girls to pursue their dreams without limits. And please, without limits comes in quotes because that's what Rebel Girls does. Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls book tell their stories, really give them voices, biographic fairy tales accompanied by diverse illustrations from dozens of women artists around the world. And to date, Rebel Girls has sold 6 million books, which is a humongous number, translated into 49 languages and sold in 85 countries. And you will not believe it has reached 10 million with their podcast. So amazing work, Ashi. We are so pleased to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Purnima. It's my pleasure to represent the company.
Yes, thank you so much. Last but not least, I'm pleased to welcome my dear colleague and friend, Lucina Di Mecco, our Senior Director for Girls Education and Gender Equality at Room to Read. Lucina's career as an advocate for women and girls' rights spans over 15 years and in multiple countries, during which she strengthened the gender equality work of multiple international nonprofits, UN agencies, and foundations. She's personally my role model. I have learned so much on gender equality from her. So thank you so much, Lucina, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Purima. It's a pleasure, and it's definitely a peer mentorship. I'm so thrilled about this event. Can't wait.
Yes. So, all right. I mean, we have our panelists here, and I would like to, start with Vandana, with my first question, Vandana. And why I want to start with you, because we do have a lot of our participants joining from the corporate world today. And, it is very important for them to understand that how you are taking the baton forward. So, you've done so much work on advancing women in workplace. And I'm just so curious that what are the most pressing challenges to achieve gender equality in the business world? If you could just throw some light on that.
Sure, Purnima. Thank you for that question. Mike Bloomberg often says, what you can't measure, you can't manage. So I think, honestly, companies need to build metrics to chart gender equity in the workplace. There need to be processes in place. I think a large majority of organizations today are quite focused on female talent pipelining. There's AI available now to create more inclusive job descriptions, and recruiters do try to ensure diverse slates through the interview process. But it's a leaky trajectory. We have high dropout rates for women at the 2 to 5 year mark, even more at mid-level of management, even at senior levels. So we have to build targeted programs to support not only recruiting, but also retention and development. As an example, at Bloomberg, we have programs that focus on growth, opportunity, access, and leadership. We love acronyms. So it's called GOAL, and they are targeted towards high potential female individual contributors as well as female team leaders. So we can support them through the different stages of their career journey and meet them where they are at. Right. And, we also don't have enough female role models, particularly in Asia. And it's a common saying, it's hard to be what you cannot see. So we have to create these networks where women can share and learn from each other, which is why it's such a privilege, I think, that we are hosting this today, and that we can, create a more inclusive dialogue and have people be the voice for women. And then there needs to be accountability, right? There needs to be accountability at the corporate level. I mean, you have to measure your impact. For us, it's our chairman, Peter Grau, who really sets the tone, right? He is a big champion for diversity and inclusion. He's speaking on the same panel, I think, in the US time zone in a couple of days, right? And so all of our business heads need to meet with him regularly, present their D&I plans. So there's a lot of buy-in at the senior level. And then at an industry level, right, we have the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index. Investors and shareholders need to start holding companies accountable. ESG is no longer a business trade-off, right? It needs to now become a business imperative.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying that. With that, I mean, if I may just ask, what are the strongest qualities a corporate leader needs to develop to serve as an advocate for change in a global organization? I mean, personally, have you benefited from an advocate in your career at Bloomberg? I mean, if you could share a personal story with us.
Sure. I think broadly, advocates really need to create an inclusive environment, right? Mm-hmm. You need to be an ally. You need to call out bad behavior. You just can't be a bystander. And I think allyship is not just about male allies. I think that's a very important component. But, just this morning, I heard someone say, lift as you climb, right? So we need to be allies for women as women. But I think to drive real change, you also need to be a sponsor. You need to be advocating behind closed doors when the women are not at the table. Unfortunately, women are not at the table as much. And as we heard from Saurav at the beginning, we're actually it's going to be regressive, the impact on gender equity with the pandemic. So I think that's important. I think you need to empower women, take risks with them, and then provide them a cover. You need to be the safety net. The imposter syndrome is real. I certainly had it. I have it. I mean, you've asked me to share a personal story. I've had lots of advocates, and I'm really grateful for that, both men and women in my career, both at Bloomberg, but also outside and even in my family and personal life. But I think, I mentioned Peter Grau earlier. He's been a great mentor and sponsor to me. And I'll share an example with him in mind. We have office committees across the world that are comprised of our most senior leaders in the region, right? They manage local engagement, communication, just as a conduit for what's going on locally with our head office. And this example is from over a decade ago, but I remember it so vividly. Peter was in Asia, and I got a call at my desk, and the phone said, Peter Grau. The chairman certainly doesn't call you very often. So anyways, I picked up the phone, and Peter told me a colleague was relocating and he wanted me to take his place as the chair of the Singapore and ASEAN Office Committee. I had just become the head of the data management department for Asia Pacific about a year ago. It was a big role already, 300 people. And traditionally, the chair of the office committees is someone from sales, from our client-facing revenue-generating department. So thankfully, I had a relationship with Peter, because I still cringe when I think back. But I remember telling him on the phone, are you sure, Peter? This is all about influencing without authority, and these are all very senior leaders. And do you think I'm ready? And he was so quick to say, so what? I've seen you in action. You're going to be great. If you need anything, I'm just a phone call away. And I can never forget that. It was a real stretch opportunity. It was amazing. We knocked it out of the park, and here I am. And I really think it stretched me and developed me for the roles that I have taken since then for both the company and more broadly.
Yeah, more power to you for that, Vandana. And we all need that Peter in our life, I would say. Moving on, as Saurav really talked about the pandemic, and, if you could just share, has the pandemic affected the progress of your initiatives in the workforce? What are the type of things that help remedy the situation? What was it?
Yeah, I think, there there's unfortunately a lot of research that the pandemic has impacted women in the workforce disproportionately, right? Women tend to be the caregivers, the homemakers. I mean, sort of talked a bit about domestic violence, which is very unfortunate. And I was reading in the 2021 McKinsey report that their pre-COVID research had never shown women to opt out of the workforce at such higher rates, especially relative to men. And with the pandemic, women are feeling more exhausted, burned out, under pressure. And so it is, as I said, having a real regressive impact, unfortunately, on gender equality. In terms of what we've done, we've continued all our recruiting, retention, development initiatives that I talked about. In fact, we've doubled down on them and we've added more in the last 2 years. So we've launched a very, very strong male allyship program through our partner, the Women's Foundation in Hong Kong last year. We've also launched a senior women's forum in Asia to focus on our most senior women in the organization to understand their needs and figure out how we can support them at that stage of their career in their workplace. We've also done a lot of communication, talks, panels, newsletters. We've empowered our ERG groups, our employee resource groups. So the Bloomberg Women's community, the Bloomberg Working Families community, to create support and be a conduit between the employees and the organization. So employees, and especially women, feel like they have a voice and a bigger voice. We understand that there's been a toll on mental health. We've launched sessions around burnout, anxiety, stress to help employees manage and also show we are there. And these are with external experts. There's a lot of resource that we've kind of put together. But I do want to say that, in some ways, I feel the pandemic has also leveled the playing field for women. I mean, you don't need to go out for those drinks after office, right? You can head home to your family. You don't need to travel for work. I think that's been an amazing boon for me. It's provided an opportunity to work from home, and flexibility is the given. Everyone has the same screen space on Zoom, right? So it kind of levels it. I think the key is really going to be when we go back to work in the new normal and how we retain our talent and what hybrid work really looks like. I think that's going to be the true test of how we retain women in the workforce.
Sure. That's amazing to hear what Bloomberg is doing, and definitely it's inspiring for other corporates also to follow. I would now like to ask Ashi a question. And Ashi, this is more about, the Rebel Girls and your role there. So Rebel Girl was founded with the mission of introducing young girls to real life role models and recognizing women's achievement in history. I clearly remember when my daughter turned 5, that was her 5th year birthday gift, the book that I gave to her. So I feel so connected with this. How important would you say storytelling is in advancing equality for the new generation of women?
Purnima, I'd love to answer your question by sharing a personal story that just speaks to the power of storytelling. So a few weeks ago, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my 3.5-year-old daughter. And as we were waiting for dinner, I was reading goodnight stories for Rebel Girls to her as well. And as we were reading, we came across the story of Alicia Alonso, who is a blind ballerina who won the highest honor in ballet in Cuba. And as I was reading, I realized that this was the first time my daughter was hearing about a blind person, let alone a blind woman. And I could just see her eyes widen with all of the questions that I knew were coming. And so I got everything from, Mama, why is she blind? And how did she become blind? And can she see from one eye or both eyes? And on and on and on. But that question she never asked me. And it was one I was expecting her to ask, but she never asked me, how can she dance if she were blind?
Oh.
And I realized that because this was the first time my daughter had heard about a blind person, it was about a blind woman doing phenomenal things. So she naturally assumed that being blind doesn't prevent you from being an amazing dancer or doing amazing things. And then a few minutes later, I see her step off the kitchen chair and, close her eyes and do a little spin. And she's 3.5. But that's what stories do.
Yeah.
They show
Yeah.
girls what's possible because another girl or another woman in real life did it, not just, a character in a movie or cartoon or animation. Storytelling is our superpower. And I mean that it is a superpower of us as humans, because storytelling allows people to connect on this deeper level. Yeah. And Vandana alluded to this earlier, but we firmly believe that if she can see it, she can be it. When a girl reads a story about someone that looks like her and talks like her, she sees herself in them, and it propels her to achieve what they've achieved and more. Girls realize they can push through barriers and are given the confidence to create a more equal world. So at Rebel Girls, the way we share stories is we use stories as a vehicle to introduce girls to other girls and women around the world who have inspired change through their words and their actions. And we do that by amplifying the voices of real life girls through our stories and our books, as well as the audio stories in our app. And we want girls to not only, see and read, but also hear and experience stories. And so through our books and free activities and events, we activate girls by asking questions and encourage them to think about, what they might do in a certain situation. So for example, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern instituted a lockdown when the pandemic hit. Now, this was a bold decision as a leader, and we asked girls questions like, would you have done the same as a leader? What were the hardest parts of the pandemic for you? What were the upsides of spending more time at home? Jacinda Ardern's motto is be strong, be kind. What is your motto, and what is it that you live by? And, our goal is really to engage girls by getting them to search their souls and constantly be in conversation with rebel women. And I'll end by saying that when we empower girls, we empower women. And when we empower women, we empower everyone. And that's what leads to a more equal world.
Absolutely. And you rightly said that how it's important to really give them the real life role models. And that's so inspiring to hear. That brings me to my next question to you. Rebel Girls' next book features young change makers for tomorrow as heroes. So what does it take to change things in different communities? And what are the most important skills a young girl needs to believe that she can?
So our mission at Rebel Girls is really to raise the most inspired and confident generation of girls, because we believe that when girls are inspired and confident, they dream big. And when they dream big, they see themselves as the heroes of tomorrow. And we believe that this is one path to empowering girls to inspire change and to create change through their words and actions, whether on a local level or on a global level. And we aren't necessarily advocating for specific skills, Purnima, but really helping to amplify attributes that instill confidence, enabling girls to truly become change makers. So to give you an example, we are running a campaign this year called Be the Change. And our motto is Rebel Girls Change the World. So every month we feature attributes like be bold, be determined, be curious, be kind. And we elevate women who embody these attributes and who are really making change, whether in their lives or local communities or our global community. To give you more examples, from Purnima Devi Bharman, who is a wildlife biologist in Assam, who boldly got her community together to save an endangered species, to Leena Sharma and Bhakti Sharma, a mother-daughter duo who were determined enough and were the first to cross the English Channel as a mother and daughter. So when girls discover women from around the world who are politicians and scientists and mathematicians and engineers and climate warriors and entrepreneurs and entertainers and more, they believe they can be them too. And this is even more true when girls see other girls and people who look like them doing incredible things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You rightly said that. And, that actually brings me to a question to Lucina. Lucina, could you just share, how does Room to Read support young girls to build independent agencies? Because that's exactly what Ashi was talking, that how the books are really helping, these stories are really helping them become independent agencies, giving them voice to their own lives. So how does Room to Read contribute to that? If you could talk about that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Purima. So Room to Read has been working, supporting girls to complete their education and really get the skills that they need for over 20 years in a number of different countries all over the world. And what we have learned is that what really makes a difference for girls, not only ability to stay in school, but really lead happy, productive lives, have the best of lives and achieve their potential are life skills. Mm-hmm. Skills can be talked about as really the skills for a good life. Skills like perseverance, critical thinking, self-confidence, and increasingly also a number of other skills such as resilience to climate, for example, leadership, empathy. Those are all things that we have found out really being essential for girls to learn and develop in adolescence, which is a really crucial time where oftentimes they are vulnerable to very many pressures to maybe get married early or leave school to start working for their families. And so what Room to Read does is that we partner with governments in countries all over the world to really deliver life skills education programs in schools. Our programs focus on supporting girls develop those life skills through sessions, role plays, a number of different and really fun activities, as well as mentoring. And the mentoring part I really want to stress is very important. It's both peer mentoring and individual mentoring from adults that are caring and that support them and can help them build a vision for their lives. And, I was really inspired hearing Vandana and Ashi really talking about the importance of role models. The mentors that Room to Read provides to the girls really serve this function of helping them to see that, a wonderful life is really possible for them. And those mentors are from the very same communities that the girls come from. And so again, there is this possibility of seeing themselves in others and seeing what's possible. And in addition to all of that, we of course also work on the enabling environment that allows girls to really stay in school and flourish, working, for example, with community leaders, families, and teachers, so that they can all get on board and understand the importance of girls' education, as well as supporting girls in their educational journey. So this is the set of offerings that we traditionally provide to girls through a program that's very often 7 years long. So it's a wonderful commitment and a really a great privilege we have to be spending time with many girls around the world for that long.
Sure. And what do you think? I mean, how can you describe how COVID-19 pandemic impacted the work done by Room to Read for the girls?
Absolutely, yes. COVID-19 changed everything in education for more actors that were really involved in education, including Room to Read. Our programs were traditionally delivered in person and in classrooms to groups of girls, entire cohorts of girls. This meant we had to change everything. Once schools were closed, once social distancing was really important. We are lucky enough to have country offices that are incredibly creative and passionate. And from the very beginning, they understood that just waiting off for, the COVID pandemic to pass was absolutely not an option. From the very beginning, we understood, and from learnings from other pandemics, that probably the consequences of this pandemic were going to be dire for girls' education, and we needed to act fast. So our staff got on the phone, talked to girls to make sure that they were safe, that they understood what was going on, and that they were continuing their studies so that they would not stay too behind when schools reopened. Our staff made more than 550,000 of such calls to the girls through the pandemic to make sure, again, that they would not lose sight of the importance of education, of going back to school, talking to parents too about the importance of keeping that as a priority. We sent 5 million texts to girls and their families, again, with tips on how to stay safe, on how to continue studying, and also started exploring multimedia offerings to reach more girls where they were already at. Our teams developed and conducted more than 600 radio episodes and more than 230 television episodes all over the world, again, to make sure that even though we couldn't often meet girls in person and in schools, they would still be able to access the critically important content that we provide.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I completely understand that how important distance learning really played a role during this COVID time. Thank you so much for that, Latina. It is really crucial to understand what life skills can provide our young adolescents. And key to our program are our social mobilizers, our local women who are hired as mentors that work with girls and their families. I mean, you rightly said that they are the ones, the adults taking care of people. So to ensure that girls stay in school, participate in activities, navigate the challenges of adolescence with the ability to make their own life choices, both personally and professionally. Creative problem solving, self-confidence, and communications are just a few of the life skills that the social mobilizers help girls to develop. And with this, now I'm honored to introduce one of Room to Read student, Khushi, who will share with us how mentoring sessions with her social mobilizer helped her manage her emotions, respect others' opinion, and build stronger relationship with her friends, relatives, and her own self. Welcome, Khushi. Thank you for joining us today. Khushi is joining us today from Delhi. We have Khushi here. Thank you, Khushi.
Hello, everyone.
Would like to say, yes. So, Khushi, let me just begin. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and, how has your exposure to life skills and mentoring by Room to Read India helped you to express yourself in life? So if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So my name is Khushi and I am a 15-year-old girl studying in 10th grade in a Delhi school. So yes, it was class 6 when I had my first session of the life skill sessions. Before that, I used to believe that hard work is the only thing which is necessary to succeed in life. I used to think that whatever I am doing and whatever I am thinking is correct and everything else is wrong. Because of this attitude, my relationship with my friends, with my family was affected. I generally don't respect anyone's opinion and just think about myself. Because of this all, I usually be in a bad mood and I started distancing each and everyone from myself. But after attending life skill session, I got to know that it is not necessary that always I am correct and everyone else is wrong. I got to know that how different peoples may have different perspective over a single thing, because of which they may have different opinions, and it is necessary to respect each and everyone's opinion and to listen each and everyone's advice to have a better decision. I learned that how it is important to have a healthy relationship with family and friends. I started listening each and everyone, and I know that how to present myself in front of other. I get to know that if I don't like someone's opinion, then how to tell him that I am not liking that what you are saying. So yes, before room to read session, I think that if I am a leader, then I should prioritize myself. But after the room to read sessions, I got to know that the real work of leader is to make his or her team better than it was before. The real work of the leader is to work with the team members and make his team better, not to just work for himself or herself. So by the room to read session, I become a good leader, I become a good student in my school. As I always wanted to become an engineer, so room to read sessions and mentorship program has helping me in it, and to achieve me those goals.
Thank you. That sounds inspiring, Kushi. Definitely, the way you have built your confidence through the program and the way the work inspires you, it's also an inspiring story for many of us. Thank you for sharing that with us. Any message you would like to give on the importance of Room to Read India's Life Skills session for other girls?
Yes. So the mentoring session are really very helpful, and I would advise each and every girl to attend these sessions, because I think that just how these sessions have benefited me, these session would definitely benefit all the underprivileged and vulnerable girls to achieve their life goals, to develop their personality.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And I'm sure your message to other girls would inspire them to take up the life skills sessions and really learn from them. So thank you so much for that. Um, so, Kushi, we are really delighted to have you here purely because, we understand it's your exam time and it's difficult to find time to do something like this, to really come on a talk show, inspire people. Thank you so much for your time. We all hope you'll continue building leadership and confidence to drive your studies and your work. And now it's time to take up some questions that we have from our audience. So I would like to ask, you know, and the first question I would like to ask Vandana, which is, how is the caste-based gender discrimination being addressed by corporate India? Any good examples, Vandana, that you would like to give? These questions are from our audience, so I'm sure the corporate world wants to get inspired by you and the initiatives taken by you.
Yeah, I don't think I have a specific example per se, but what I can share is that our organization, and I think a lot of the larger organizations are now, using and interviewing and screening system that actually does not need for you to share a lot of details around you, including your gender, very honestly, because we know that break the bias is International Women's Day theme for this year, right? So how do you break the bias? And this is inherent bias in our society in India. So one of the things that we can do is to actually just negate that and not have any of these questions as a part of the application process. So I think that's one way. The second thing I think is, we've all talked about it, so I don't want to go on about it, is role modeling. I think we need to highlight women who have, achieved success from various communities and from diverse backgrounds.
No, so thank you for this. That brings me to another question, and it's a little related question. How best to create allies men so that a pushback and a harsh reaction to inclusive policies are minimized at workplace? You may not have that experience at Bloomberg, but any message that you would like to give on these lines to the rest of the corporate audience?
Yeah. So it's how do you create male allies at a corporate level and at an individual level, right? If I'm getting it right. So I think at a corporate level, they've got to be programs. I truly believe, I keep saying it, you have to have accountability. You have to measure impact. I'm a data person, and the devil is in the details. So we cannot keep having these conversations and not really drive change and measure the change that we're actually trying to drive. So I think one thing is to put processes and clear programs and have a male allyship program that actually has buy-in from the top and has your senior most leaders. So other men aspire to become male allies, right? Because if you don't have 50% of the workforce at the table, you're not going to really be driving change. That's number one. I think at an individual level, I also strongly advocate that women need to speak up. You know, if you don't ask, you don't get. You know, and you shall not receive. So I think I was on a panel with Kathy Mitsui, you know, who actually was the transformational lady who talked about womenomics in Japan maybe 20 years ago. And, you know, she said something very interesting that really has resonated with me, that each of us as women needs to have our own personal board of directors, a BOD, right? These are people that you have in your network who know you holistically. Right. So they can be, and I think it's very important for women to have men in that network. You should have women,
Absolutely.
and they can be your partner, they can be your you know, friends, your childhood school mates, you know, people who know you holistically. Absolutely, people from your workforce, ex-colleagues, current colleagues, that actually call you out and tell you how it is. Right. I think you can't be drinking your own Kool-Aid. Right. We've got to stop being the victim and honestly take charge of the conversation, right? I mean, if you're going to make it better, I have a 22-year-old daughter joining the workforce. I certainly don't want her to go through the same journey that I did. I mean, she should have her own journey. There's no way are we where we need to be. But, you know, we're all in this together. So better together.
Yeah. We have a lot of questions for you, Vandana, but before I really ask you all those questions, I would like to ask a few questions to both Ashi and Lichina, because we do have some questions for them. Lichina, I would like to go next to you. How can, can network building for women be considered as part of life skills? As in my understanding, girls often suffer from peer support network as well. So, if you could just help us.
Thank you. No, this is such a crucial element, and that's why actually Room to Read works with entire cohorts of girls, because we have seen and heard over and over again, talking to the girls that are a part of our program, that it makes an enormous difference that they can have one another to talk to kind of like support each other in moments of crisis, that they can talk to one another about important topics that are really alive for them, and that, you know, at times they might not even feel comfortable talking with their families, but having a peer support network, someone that both holds them accountable, study hard, to do the right thing, can call it out when they actually are making any mistakes, maybe are being bullies and so on, as well as support them if they're feeling, you know, a lack of self-confidence or struggling, figuring out how do they balance, you know, house chores with homework and exams and things like that. So we definitely believe in the importance of having role models, but having a support network of peers is really just as important. And that's why we promote those support networks through our program in schools, because we really believe, you know, it's important to start young and to have that type of support network that you can refer to and that will have your back. I think it continues being important later on in life too, but it really starts already in school.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think the person who asked this question is made a powerful statement themselves, that, you know, network building for women is so important. Backing, women backing is also very important. So I think, thank you for asking that question. And thank you for answering that question, Lichina. I would now like to move to Ashi. Ashi, there's an interesting question, that what usually is the process of sourcing, collecting and selecting these stories? Because these are, of course, the real stories, you know, these are not really, these are real life experiences, so to say. So people are just so curious to understand that what it takes and how do you create these.
Sure. As you said, amplifying a plurality of voices is core to the heart of the company. And for girls to see themselves in our stories, we need to represent women and girls from a variety of backgrounds and vocations and arrays of occupations. So what we do typically is to try to seek out stories through research, through biography readings, through, we have a large team and we're constantly nominating women and girls that we hear about and read about, whether personally or in the news or, from a remote region that we come from, to really showcase just the variety of amazing things that women and girls are doing with their lives. And then we use, after that, we try to reach out to the people whose stories we're writing about, and then have them fill out a form to give us, more factual information, or edit it as actually I just edit the facts if things aren't correct, and then we go through our editorial and illustration process to create those stories and put them in our books. So that's generally the process we take, and we're always looking to hear about amazing women doing wonderful things with their lives.
Yeah, and just a very related query that comes to my mind: how to navigate the thin line between appropriating the personal stories and amplifying the stories?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We try to really look at, what the attributes are that these women have used to build that confidence, to inspire them to dream big. And we focus on featuring those attributes in our stories. And that's what sort of, keeps it very grounded, I guess, for each story.
Yeah.
So, we're not getting too far into too many details, but really trying to amplify what that attribute is to help girls to dream bigger and be more confident.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you so much. And I would like to go back to Vandana. There are a lot of questions for you, Vandana. What are the most transformative action an organization can take today to ensure a fair representation of women in its workforce? We talk about women in the boardroom. We talked about women having a seat on the table. So what is that you suggest?
And I think, I don't know if there's one transformative action, very honestly, Purnima, but I think that I think it has to be very clearly mapped out. For an organization to really drive change, they need to map out the journey, and they need to understand where is it a leaky funnel? Are they not recruiting enough women? Are they dropping off in the interview process? Do we have diverse slates at the last stage? Is it a 50-50 diverse slate? I mean, are our job descriptions not inclusive? Right now we have a company called Textio that uses AI to make our job, just using, it's very interesting because they use different words, right? Women will not say, just not use certain words because we just have a bias that they are associated with being aggressive, and we've been kind of schooled in through society and culture that those kind of words actually showcase you perhaps not in the best light as a woman, right? So there's I think so you can do that with Textio and other AI. Run your job descriptions to make sure that you are actually attracting a diverse talent pipeline, right? That has female representation. Then you make sure that your funnel is not leaky, and that you have clear prioritization of making sure that your slates are diverse. Then comes the issue of retention. And I think, a lot of what we talked about retention is meeting women where they are, not meeting them where we want them to be, because they may not be there, right? So partnering with them through their career journey and making sure, again, I'm like Ashi, I love personal stories. So I remember when Bloomberg first asked me to move to take on a bigger role in Singapore, my daughter was 1.5, and I said no. And they didn't give up on me, right? They came back when she was 3 and said, now she's going to go start school. Do you want to relocate? I think you've outgrown our Indonesia office and you're made for bigger things. So I think meeting women where they are at, and then putting development programs to guide them through that process. And I think making sure also that it's top down, that there is a very clear message that is coming from the most senior management, that this is an imperative. I think that honestly will be most transformational, because when the senior most leaders put it out there that this is what they want not a diverse but an inclusive workforce, because I think we all focus on diversity and then we bring all of these wonderful women, but we don't focus on inclusion, so then they drop out through their career journeys, right? So I think that inclusiveness, and then ensuring, as we've discussed, right, having male allies. And most men are very open and willing. At least I have felt. And just this morning, I was listening to our business plan from our Bloomberg Women's community and Bloomberg Women's BWIT, which is a technology community. And we're focusing a lot on more together, like, bringing the other 50%. And most of the male allies are really wanting to be a part of this journey because they have wives and daughters and all, but they don't know how, right? So don't disregard them, bring them on the journey with you. And it might take a little bit of education, a little bit of time and a little bit of patience. But, we're all in this and it's going to take time. And, as long as we feel we are making change.
Absolutely. And thank you so much again, Vandana, Ashi, and Lucina, for sharing your wisdom and experience with us today. Such powerful comments, such powerful discussions we have had today. I'm going to be taking back by myself. And Vandana, you rightly said that lift as you climb, and how that creating that talent pipeline is so important, and giving that other 50% the equal weightage. So, empowering women, taking risk with them, joining them in their journey, not where you want to see them. So these are some of the powerful things that you rightly said. And, thank you for all those insights that you have given us. Ashi, the stories that you bring to inspire the adolescent girls, it's going to change the world, definitely. So we really want to congratulate Rebel Girls for doing that. And, as you said, that if she can see it, she can be it. Really moving them from those fairy tales to the real life, that is going to be a challenge. That is going to be inspiring them. And being a mother myself, I have really seen that change. So, you rightly said storytelling is the superpower. So thank you for giving those stories. Thank you for giving these voices. So it's really, really important. And Lucina, we can't thank you enough for, really showcasing the importance of life skills, what Room to Lead is doing, and, how perseverance, critical thinking, and leadership skills help girls to be happy and start creating and making a difference in their life and their life of others who they experience with. I also want to thank Khushi and the million of young people who participate in Room to Read's program. So, Khushi is just a face for all the little girls that we work with. Their courage, curiosity, and leadership are truly changing the world. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in today and the entire Room to Read community. It's going to take all of us to build a more gender equal world, and we appreciate your support. I want to thank Saurav for inspiring Room to Read India and really holding the baton of gender equality. And yes, as Saurav continues to say, that education is the equalizer. So we are going to be using that. Thank you, Saurav, for your note today. It was really helpful. And as a way to leave this discussion on a positive note, I would like to encourage you to share in the chat box, what is that one thing you are committed to do today to continue support gender equality? We would love to hear from all of you before we leave this session today. And we actually kept this 2-3 minutes for everyone to write that one single phrase. one single word that you pledged to do today. So I would love to hear some of the things. People are definitely inspired by lift as you climb and some of the powerful statements that you have given us today, Vandana. So definitely yes, and breaking the bias, which is going to be this sign for this year. So we are going to be breaking the bias. Thank you, Julie. I mean, yes, it's so glad that people are, if you just go in the chat box and sharing stories and giving voices to girls. Valerie says, be other women advocate and build your own boat. Yes, that's going to be, I have actually written that as for myself, creating your own boat. Vandana, that was really impactful, I would say. Women-friendly JD and working environment, amplifying women's voices wherever and whenever it is possible. That's said by Gloria. Pledging to help more women sit down and understand their challenges, written by Ria. Vanita Chopra, great takeaways. Thank you so much for all the wonderful panelists. Educate boys to be feminists. Thank you, Legina, for saying that. That's a learning, I would say. It is so heartwarming to see all the responses from across the world. Gift Boys Rebel Girls book. Yes, that's another thing. Absolutely. So maybe now the Rebel Girls has to probably come up with something that inspires boys and, how boys could get benefited out of it. So yes, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. It has been a very interactive session. We really loved hearing all the, how our audience participated today, and the speakers. Definitely, it's been an inspiring journey. Thank you, Kushi, for being here today. With this, I would just say namaste from India and thank you. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, Purnima. Namaste.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.